Hey everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. In this tutorial, I am going to tell you what every successful art journal page needs. So let's get started. I am just gessoing my page. This is a primer, part of the process. Now we're going to give this a good dry. I flip it over and I dry it on both sides. That just gives for even drying. Little tip there. Now we're going to start with what every page needs. Every page needs contrast, and you can build contrast onto your page by the colors you choose, especially by adding black and white. So on this page, I am doing some stamping with a silicone trivet that I cut to size. And I'm putting brayering on black acrylic paint. The black stands out against the white, and I'm going to maintain that contrast even when I add color. So now I'm grabbing this hard stamp, I'm brayering on the black acrylic paint, and I'm stamping this. Now these are more solid than the first stamp, and I like building variation in there. Now I'm using the black acrylic paint because it's darker, more visible than if I used ink. And I'm doing that because I want to maximize the contrast later down. And as I said, every page needs contrast. And on this layer, I'm building in the black that's going to show up on the page and give your page energy and just raise it up. As always, when I use acrylic paint with any of my stamps, I spray it with my Murphy's oil soap and clean it. So now I'm going to use a script stamp and I'm adding one more layer of stamping. This is all contrast. It's all adding interest, pattern to my background, but I am using the black in order to build that contrast into the page. So these, if you want, you can keep all these ones that you find you use and use again on your background, put them in a tub and keep them all together. Don't file them away with their partners if you're using them. So now, once that's dry, I am going to continue making contrast. And I'm going to use this stencil. This is a 12 by 12 stencil. It is called Cosmic Music. I am taping it down so it doesn't move. Now, where the plastic is going to stay white. White with black, lots of contrast there. And then I'm going to add my color scheme. I'm going to add yellow, orange, magenta, and deep violet. These are bright, vibrant colors, and they also are very translucent, which means they're not going to cover up the black that I have there. They're very bright, so the black and white is going to contrast really nice with these bright, vibrant colors that I have chosen. So now I'm just using a makeup sponge and applying the various colors. And because they are, as you saw on that color wheel, next to each other on the color wheel, I know that these colors are going to blend together and give me tones that are in between the yellow and orange and in between the orange and magenta. Now I do have to be a little careful with the deep violet and the yellow. That might make mud. They're very far apart on the color wheel. So if you go back to that, so the closer they are on the color wheel, the less likely they're going to make mud. If they're far apart or across from each other, they are definitely going to make mud. But I know that I've used this color scheme before. I know that it works. It makes beautiful tone in between tones. And this vibrancy against the what will be the black stamping that I did and the white that is going to show where the plastic bits of the stencil are, that's all going to stay white. So I'm built in a lot of contrast and a lot of wow onto this page. You'll see once I finish adding color. So this is also a very quick, easy way of doing a background. This background was super quick, stamping all with the black. One stencil, then I'm using, 4 colors. It looks like I spent a lot of time doing it, but I really didn't. So what I'm doing here is I'm just building up colors. I want bright colors all over the place. So I'm blending the magenta with over the deep violet and the magenta over the yellow, and I'm getting all sorts of tones in between very, very easily. And then I'm coming back and I'm brightening up some of the areas if it's a little too light of an application. But again, these paints I know are very translucent. You have opaque paints and translucent. Opaque will block off what's beneath it to a certain degree. The more opaque, the more it's going to block things off. The more translucent they are, the more you're going to see what's underneath them. Sometimes these are marked on the tubes of paint, and sometimes it's very easy to try it. Just put a black line and then paint over it. Does it cover it up, or can you see through it? So I'm just building up the vibrancy of the color, trying to maximize that contrast. At this stage, I don't really have an idea of what focal image I'm going to go with. I just want to have fun in a quick, easy way. I don't want to overthink it. So I picked a color scheme that I know I love. I went to an old favorite. So again, I'm just building up the depth of color here, just over that. But you can still see that black coming through. And that's because I used the paint, not the ink. So in the moment of truth, we're going to lift it up. And wow, look at that white. It just pops off. Adding that white, that contrast. Now you've got the patterning there, you've got the stamping. Yum. So once that is completely dry, I am just going to edge my page. I'm not sure where I'm going, but I know I'm going to edge the page. So I'm using black acrylic paint on my angle brush, using the floating acrylic shading technique that I use all the time. Now you can use a Stabilo all pencil here to shade around there, or charcoal. Those are not permanent, so they will reactivate if you put wet on top. I hope as you look at this background, you can see the black, the white, the colors, the contrast that's there. That's what makes this background so spectacular. I find also adding yellow in every background also really adds to the page. So I'm just building up the shading or the edging around the page. There is a link to the Crafter's Workshop in the description box below, and there's a coupon code there if you're interested in getting this stencil or any of the other stencils. Any stencils you see me using, good chance they are by the Crafter's Workshop. If you like this video or like the videos that I put out, please take the time to subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell, select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. You'll get notified and give you a thumbnail, and you can decide if that video is something that you'd like to watch. So now I'm working on focal points. So I grab my basket here. We've got this girl. She's kind of the same colors. I can go this way or that way. She shows up and pops on there. That would definitely work. I've got some black and white daisies here. That really pops on the background. I could combine the girl with the flower. This is another girl. She's white. She really stands out on the background. I really like that, and the size works there. I've got some full length girls that I would turn it this way. I would cut this magazine picture out a little more and then find a sentiment that goes with the expression on their face. Sentiments from my Sassy Sayings one would be particularly good in there. I have this girl, which when I was trying to draw, I would cut her out, glue her down, and then paint her. That would look good on the background. So you see, this background, there are so many options from magazines to printables to things that you might draw or create yourself. That with the red dress, that works as well. But in the keeping with contrast, somehow that black and white was in my mind, and I remembered I had this farm cow napkin from Ninny's Napkins. There is a link and coupon code as well in the description box. And I like the black and white with that colorful background. Again, we're building contrast by selecting the type of focal image that we are. You can go with the same colors as you saw, or you can go with more the black and white and build that contrast. So I cut this this cow out of the napkin. I peeled off the excess layers and I'm going to put it over here. But if I glued it down, we'd see that background. So I need to glue this down onto a piece of copy paper first. So I don't end up seeing my background. So this is just a piece of copy paper from the recycle bin. There's something printed on the other side. I'm putting a good layer of fluid matte medium, and then I'm going to place the napkin on here. Now I could use the iron-on decoupage technique, and that would eliminate the wrinkles. But I actually wanted the wrinkles because the hair on the cow, I want that to look more natural. And adding the wrinkles will actually make it look more like the hair on the cow. So then I'm putting a coat on top, being mindful that napkins, when they get wet, become very fragile and you don't want to rip it. So once I'm done with this, I am going to make sure that it completely dries. And I'm removing the excess matte medium from my brush before I throw it in the water. I find that that just helps the cleaning process. So once it's dry, I'm using a pair of scissors and I'm kind of wiggling it around. I don't want just a straight edge. Because it's hair on the cow that I want to see that little bit of irregularity, not just a straight edge. So that's why looks like I'm shaking. I'm deliberately doing that so I don't get a perfectly straight edge. And there we have it. So I could go this way, but then there's too much on top. Over here, there's a lot on the left side, but I'm working on my sentiment. So I typed out a bunch of cow-related sentiments. I heard that. Seize the movement. Be legendary. These are moments to remember. And, I'm just cutting them out and auditioning them on the page. I want to see how they fit. And I'm visual. I need to actually move it around the page to figure that out. And I went with, some cows are called bossy. I'm not bossy. I just have leadership skills. Kind of a snarky comment, made me laugh when I saw it. And I thought, you know what? It could go with the cow. I picked a font when I typed this out that was big and bold. Again, I want to build that contrast in. I need it needs to stand up to the colorful pattern background that I've created. Now I'm finding that the sentiment there's so much room on the left side. I want to spread that out a little bit to cover the space, but then if only the cow could go here, but then I have this here. I could paint this black, and then I remember, I had that flower. Yeah, this one. What if I glued that there? It covers up that space, allows me to move the cow closer to the center, works better, I think, for a composition. So don't be afraid to paint, the body of the cow in, add a flower, add something to the main focal image to make it bigger or give it more weight or presence on the page. What you're given with a napkin or a printable is the start. You can adjust and add to it with other things that you have in your stash. And when I'm setting up the composition, there's a lot of playing around, trying it one way, trying it other. I could use my fluid matte medium for this, but because the cow is fairly thick, I'm going to use the gel medium. And you can see I printed that out on a piece of paper that had some printing on the back. So nothing goes to waste. I'm just going to put a coat of gel medium underneath and then one on top as well. I love how the black and white of this cow contrasts with the background and just really works well on the page. Then I'm going to position the flower. I like how the center of the flower matches the circles that were stenciled on there in the white. And then glue down the sentiment. Again, matte medium underneath and on top. Okay. And again, cleaning out the matte medium out of the brush before I throw it in the water. And I'm going to add some color to the flower. Now, initially I thought I'm just going to add yellow. The yellow just didn't quite look right, so I add some orange and then I add some magenta. But I like bringing out that yellow. It just ties in with my background. And you want everything to work together. So here I'm adding a little bit of orange, maybe some magenta. Oh, here I'm adding a little bit of magenta to the nose of my cow, just again to tie it in more closely with the colors that are in the background. And now I'm taking some black acrylic paint and I'm shading in the circles. I just want to bring out those circle motif a little bit more. So I'm doing the shading inside all the circles. So I do one half, then I let it dry and I come back and I do the other half. And I'm turning the page as I go just to make it easier for myself to do it. Ninny's Napkins has this cow napkin. They also have all the farm animal ones, which are great for, fun, fun and funky art journal pages or to use as on cards and put a snarky comment or a pun with the animal in there. The sentiments that I have, I can shrink. I can down in size so they will fit a card or they can go inside the card. Here I'm just adding some shading on the flower. I'm just adding some kind of gray tone shading all on the petals. Now remember when I glued that daisy down, I put a coat of fluid matte medium or gel medium on top. That seals it and turns it into a non-porous surface, and prepares it for taking if you are going to colorize it in any way, shape, or form. So I like it the way it is with just the grayscale shading. Now I'm shading around the cow to make it pop off the background. And I'm just darkening up some of the black, and you're going to see me come in with some white to brighten up the whites of my focal image. I want that to be what catches the eye. So here I've grabbed some white acrylic paint, I've thinned it down, I'm using my liner brush, and I'm making it look like the hair. I'm bringing out that hairy kind of quality on the cow. There are marks underneath where the napkin had this. I'm just bringing out what's there, maybe adding a little bit to it. And because there's matte medium underneath that sealed it, if I put something on and I decide, ooh, I didn't like it, I can grab a baby wipe or a wet cloth and wipe that off and go back to the basic. But I like how this adding the white here really just made it look so much better, I think. Then I add a little bit of white to my daisy here. Again, this makes it look less like something that you photocopied and cut out and more like that you painted it. I want to shade around the sentiment with my black acrylic paint. Again, this is just making it stand out more. You could have used a Posca pen here if you wanted to. Add a little more shading on the flower. Then I decide to grab my fine line applicator bottle and outline along with the shading. This just adds one more layer. This is a little bit dimensional. It doesn't go flat. This is just black acrylic paint that I have thinned down to the consistency that work comes out of the bottle. It's kind of a bit of trial and error when you're figuring it out, but love my fine line applicator bottles. Then adding some sketchy lines around the outside edge. So if your page is lacking something, ask yourself, did I include contrast? Maybe add some black, add some white. That might be what's missing. Here I'm grabbing a little bit of the magenta with the orange and just adding ever so slightly a little bit of color. I'm undecided whether that improved it or not. If you don't try, you don't know. Another option would have been to paint that daisy the magenta color or one of the colors in the background and not have it be as white as it is. So many options, so little time. And as always, between layers, I'm always drying and making sure most of the time I don't record that because who wants to see paint dry? Then I'm just going to take off the masking tape from the top so I get my straight edge. And we have a colorful page full of contrast and life. I hope you enjoyed this. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Until next time, go get creative.